Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 816, Gary's got a special guest for us, but before we go that, we've got Windows 11 news, we've got EV news, Surface Duo news, and lots more. So it's going to be a good show this week, so let's get straight to Gary. Gary, good evening.
Good evening. What have we done with Richard this week?
Yeah, he says he's on holiday. He spends a lot of holidays, that guy, doesn't he?
Yes. Very, very good employer, I guess, the register.
Yeah, he is. So yeah, he's off on holiday this week. So we're going to leave him with his holiday. You've got a special guest lined us for the second half of the show.
Yeah, and second appearance from Sam from Gridserve. So he's come back to join us and talk about where the progress they've made since the last time he was on, which is very impressive, I have to say. Yeah,
that's brilliant. And we've also got some Windows news as well that we can talk about, and some Surface and quite a lot of other bits and pieces as well. And I mentioned last week that we will have a guest from the Windows Insider team. So we're still trying to sort that out, but there's still time to get your questions in. So if anybody wants to ask questions to somebody from the Windows Insider team, you want to hear directly from the team directly, then you've still got time to send those in. You can email me them, ian@digital-lifestyle.com. You can @ISTix on Twitter, or you can send me a postcard in a self-addressed envelope, however you like. Get them to me, and I'll then include them in the questions. I've already got some really good questions as well. So yeah, send those in, because I think that'll be great to get the answers directly from the Windows Insider team. I'm not exactly sure when it's going to be yet. You can imagine they're quite busy at the moment, but we'll make sure we get in the next few weeks. So plenty of time to do that. So, well, first of all, I'm going to share my screen because so we're here on my Surface laptop, and if I minimize, you can see here that what I'm running is Windows 11.
Whoa!
So not just my Surface Go that I've been using for Windows Insider testing. I've actually got my full laptop working on here as well, and that's because we're in the Windows Insider program on the beta channel now.
Yay!
So last week, Microsoft released Windows 11 to the beta channel, and this is what you can see I'm running here. And first of all, it works exceptionally well on this Surface laptop. This is definitely the best device I've run it on so far. I've run it on some older machine. And actually, I think this is the first machine that I've run it on that's actually officially supported as well. So perhaps some method to Microsoft's decisions with that. But yeah, it runs brilliantly. It's fairly quick to install. As with the dev build, the initial one to get onto Windows 11 is a full build. So it's like an hour as it downloads the 4 gig image and applies that, and then a reboot, and then you're done. But anyway, here it is, and like I said, it works really well. Everything is super smooth. I think the Teams capture may make it look a bit not as smooth as perhaps it is when the way I see it, but yeah, it's really nice. You've got all the animation in the Windows Store, and you've got all the nice little subtle UI changes on here, and you can see the widgets that appear. Everything is really smooth on it, and it works really well. So I've been using that since it came on the beta channel last week, and no problems at all. So currently it's the same build that is on the Windows Insiders for Dev at the moment, and that means that you've got a really good opportunity now to choose which channel you want to go on. So this is 222.0.0.100, which we've mentioned that I've speculated. I know information on this. My guess is that 222.0.0.0 is the build that will get pushed out to Windows users in general when they get Windows 11, and this incremental part, the .100, is the bits that we're testing at the moment, and that's what's on the beta channel at the moment. Currently, if you're on the dev channel, you've got the same build. So actually that gives you this opportunity now to maybe you say, okay, well, maybe my device might be better on the beta channel. I want something less. I want to take the less risky option, which is like I've got here with my laptop too. So you could switch from the beta from the dev to the beta channel, and vice versa. You can switch from the beta to the dev, but you've always been able to do that, switch to a higher risk build, haven't you? Because you get newer bits. But at this stage, while they're both got parity, you can actually effectively switch down a ring. And Microsoft say that they will be going forward with new builds for the dev channel in the future. And so the beta channel is, if you want to be you're not getting finished code, but you're getting closer to finished code with less risk.
Yeah.
So now is a good chance to do that and to change those rings if you want to. So I've got a feeling though, if you've got an unsupported device, you can't switch. So if you're on release preview or you're not on the Windows Insider program and you've got an unsupported device and you try and run Windows 11, it won't let you install it. I'll talk about a bit more why I know this because I've been playing around with this week. But anyway, so now is a good opportunity to switch to beta, and I'm guessing we'll get a few beta builds until the release, maybe October time. Is kind of current thinking.
Yeah, I think that's what people seem to be suggesting.
Yeah, so now is a good time to switch rings. If you want to go all in, full risk and risk having to wipe your machine, then Dev Channel is the place to be because that's the very latest bits. But if you want to try Windows 10 with less risk but still don't want to wait until it's ready for release, then you can try on the beta channel. So I would never recommend putting anything like this on your production machine. This is my almost production machine, which is why I'm on the beta channel. So. Yeah, there you go. So we didn't get a build though last week either, did we? Perhaps because of this, I'm guessing that they've got a whole load of more telemetry last week, and so they couldn't probably field two builds at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case.
Yeah. So so that was so we got the beta build last week, and you've got this moment in time. That's probably another reason why they didn't shove a dev build out on the same day, because that wouldn't give you the opportunity to switch rings. Then they need to give you a bit of time. So I guess maybe a week is a good amount of time for you to make that decision. And then this week, but they could potentially see an incremental in the major build number as well as we go off on the dev channel to testing next year's releases and things like that. As with the beta channel, we'll stick with this year's Windows. So we could be testing 22H1, while the beta channel is on 21H2, which is Windows 11. But yeah, the basic rule of thumb, if you want to just test Windows 11 as it is now, probably the beta channel is the way to do it. So that's what I've got on here, and as you can see with the Surface Laptop 2, it works fine. It's a i5 processor. I've got 8th Gen i5 with 8 gig of RAM. And all the bits you need, the TPM bits and everything else. So yeah, working good. So I'm enjoying it. It's got to that point in a way when I use Windows 10, I think, oh, this looks a bit old. It's a bit like you get the new OS, and it's a bit of a shock to see it initially, and then gradually over as you get used to it, and you want to. I want to stick with this now. So that's where I'm at with that now. But I'm not moving my music machines over. That's just perhaps a little bit too risky because they are very fickle. Spent a lot of time trying to get them working in the past. In fact, that article I wrote about Korg drivers gets hundreds of hits every day still, and the video. So even though I made that in 2019, people are still struggling with the Korg drivers. That's where only the first 10 MIDI channels, or it's not even MIDI channels, I think they're not even DMA channels, but the first 10 channels that devices can use. If the Korg device gets on like 11 to 16, then it won't work, and there's always been an issue with that. So and my little guide helps with that. Yeah, so there we go. So we're on the beta for Windows 11, and that was the reason why I know been playing about with specs and things is because I wanted to do a video of how to use Hyper-V to test Windows 11, because you don't want to put it on your production machine and you've got a machine running Hyper-V, then you can be able to do that. In fact, I ran Windows 11 on my Surface laptop, which is already running Windows 11, but you don't have to. So I was doing a video of that today, which is up on our YouTube channel. But I did notice there's a few hoops you've got to do now to get the devices running Windows 11. If you have a Windows 10 VM that's running on beta or dev and you haven't put Windows 11 on yet, you had it maybe saved and you just fire it up today, that will actually get the new build. If you join a new device to the Windows Insider program, or it was on release preview, and it's an unsupported device, you can't get Windows 11.
Right.
So yeah, so if you fire up a new Hyper-V image, and I did this, I created a new Hyper-V image of with Windows 10. It was all running Windows 10 fine. I went to the Insider program, joined my account, and it would only give me the release preview setting. I couldn't pick the other rings, and that's because it said Windows 11 is not supported on your device. I thought Hyper-Vs weren't as limited, but anyway, they are. So I played about and did all sorts of settings, and this is what I sort of conclusion I came to. You need to have a minimum 4 gig of RAM for your Hyper-V. It can be dynamic, so it's, but just make sure you've got the minimums, the recommended, the setting as 4096, and then you can put dynamic on. You need to have a Gen 2 device which supports TPM. I've got a feeling Hyper-V doesn't enforce the TPM bit, but anyway, that's what I did. I got Gen 2 device with Hyper-V with TPM enabled. And most importantly, the one that was catching me out, because I was thinking, why won't you accept Windows 11? It all met all the spec. Is I had to enable 4 processors, virtual processors, and then as soon as I did that, it then allowed me to switch to the dev or beta channels. Right. So doing that, I've managed to get a clean image. So I got obviously can't get a Windows 11 ISO at the moment. So I got a Windows 10 ISO from the Windows Insider program. Obviously my account's already linked to Windows Insider, so join Windows Insider, make sure all the specs are right, and got that installed. So if you want to test Windows 11, you can do that now, and there's no risk then if you do it on a virtual machine, and it actually works really well, especially if you've got a decent machine. So you need to have a decent amount of RAM and hard disk if you want to do that. I'm up to 80 gig virtual machine drive just from taking a clean installed Windows 10, doing all the updates, applying the Windows Insider settings, and then installing Windows 11. So the VM went from the virtual disk went from a gig to 80 odd gig, which is quite surprised by that, really. But a lot of updates going through. I mean, you can compact it again, but if I just left it, and that's where it got up to. So anyway, I posted a video for that, and I'm also going to do a separate video on how to, if your device is capable of supporting Windows 11, how to actually go to and stick the beta channel on there if you wanted to give it a try as well. So plenty of ways you can test Windows 11 at the moment. Have you managed to find any devices that you can actually run it on yet?
Not here, no. Even my latest laptop doesn't run it. So yeah, I've got one device somewhere which I can run it on, which is a client's machine, but it's I think it's the list is restricted, but perhaps, as you say, there's good reason for that.
I mean, if you think back to, remember when Vista was launched and there was the old one PC world was saying PCs with 1 gig of RAM, which was causing a horrible experience when you unboxed it. So at least that gets around this. OEMs will have to have a device that's got good specs. I mean, but I run it on an old Atom processor on that Lenovo Yoga Book, and it does work. But yeah, the best experience so far has been on this Surface. It seems to light up the screen as well. I don't know quite, but it looks better. It looks so much more impressive when you see it on this Surface laptop, especially in dark mode. It looks really good. I put it in light mode now on recording the screen, but it looks really nice in dark mode. Yeah, so those are Windows 11 news. So yeah, hopefully we'll get a new build this week to try out some more stuff, but I'm enjoying using it and resisting the temptation to put it on more devices. And before we go to the interview as well, I want to mention that the Surface Duo, which I was actually using while I was sorting my internet connection out. I didn't want to leave you hanging in the lobby, so I was on Teams on my Surface. I didn't actually set it up properly because it actually works really well if you put it into in sort of a book mode, and you get a nice little view of you get using the camera there. It's actually a nice device for running Teams calls. I do use it fairly often on that. But do you know you can get the Duo now for £679 from the Microsoft Store?
Yeah, I saw that. That's getting better. Still probably not something I'd pay that amount of money for, but because of the restrictions.
I think from £1,300, it's certainly come down a long way, and of course, it points to the new device being announced soon. We've seen leaked pictures of the Duo 2 with the camera bump on it. That I've heard that the camera is going to be there with the camera that you would expect, and it's perhaps going to have NFC and slightly better screens and things like that. So I imagine we'll see the Duo 2 back up at that full price at £1,300. I mean, but actually, if you're interested,
I can say that camera bump looks like substance over style rather than style over substance this time.
Yeah. I mean, I saw that when I saw the picture. I thought, man, that looks quite a big bump on there. But I'm just going to get my. So this is the Note 20. Let's pop it out of its little case. But yeah, there's quite a big bump on that as well. So it's not, it's not insignificant. And I think it's pretty much on the lines of that as well. But of course, with the Surface, it does fall back like that. So you're going to have perhaps, you're going to be more like that when it closes because you're going to have the bump on there. But I think for it'll be worth it if it's a decent camera, because I tend to, if I'm going out, perhaps going walking or I'm going out or something to show or when go to Silverstone or something, I would take the Note 20 because the camera's better. I wouldn't necessarily use it as a phone, but I'd just take this one as a camera. So perhaps it would mean that it's back to carrying. You can have that. It can be that one device for you. But I think if you're interested in the Duo and look at it, and you really weren't bothered about camera, £679, not bad for a dual screen device. It's certainly it's certainly cheaper than a lot of Android. Any of the Android foldables, I guess, at the moment.
Yeah.
Just that it's going to be out of date, I suppose. At the in the next couple of months, it's going to be replaced.
Yeah.
I don't know. We talked about this. We got the July update for the Duo as well last week.
Yeah, you did. You mentioned that last week.
Least exciting update we've ever had on that. So hopefully we'll get Android 11 on it soon. But yeah, anyway, it's worth that. It's worth having a look at if you wanted to test this out. There was something else I was going to ask you about as well. I know you've got your developer account with Microsoft. Have you managed to try the Windows 365 yet?
Yeah, I'm running a couple of things on Windows 365. Just testing stuff, looking at the graph and everything which is behind it to get the information out of it. I think the PC side of things. I mean, it's interesting. You can run this up, and it costs not unreasonable if you're a enterprise, I guess. It's just. I mean, I've had a few issues getting it to run, but that's probably my end rather than their end.
I mean, I've tried because in Azure Portal you can build virtual machines. You can build anything, and then your remote desktop. And I guess it's the same principle that it's using.
Yeah, it's very similar principle.
Yeah, so you kind of connect remote. It's kind of like a remote desktop of a session. I mean, it seems a good idea, but I'm just I'm guessing eventually that maybe that's the future, that we'll have lightweight devices that connect to a cloud server like that.
Talking about PCs on the cloud. Have you played with Windows 96.net?
No, I haven't. No.
So this is someone's imagination of what would happen if they stuck on Windows 95 and gone that way instead of going off on the route they did.
Oh yeah.
It's quite cool actually. I mean, if you just go to Windows 96.net, you just get straight into the desktop. So that's Windows 96. So it's pretty cool. it has a nice boot up screen on it as well, which is kind of cool.
Oh, there we go. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, it's
I like how it booted up as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And is this all created in JavaScript then?
I don't actually. I'm not sure what it's running in, to be honest.
Look at that.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
It does actually look like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, even got a terminal as well.
I like the BSOD generator though. If you go to start, what's it? Programs utility. I think it's in there. Well, no, it's not. No, it's other. Sorry, other. You got BSOD and
Let's have a look.
And you can put your own message on there.
Oh no! Excellent. That's fantastic. Then I love old stuff like that. I mean, last week it was I've forgotten the year. What was it? The 20th anniversary of NT3.5.
Yeah,
I think it was. Yeah, and I actually fired up my NT3.5.1 session. So I was running Windows 11 and a virtual NT3.5.1 on it, and it's amazing how things have changed in Windows. But yeah, that's fantastic. I love that. So, I'll have a play around with that once I've figured out what's wrong with my my virtual my Windows 96 machine.
Yeah,
yeah, that's good fun. That I was playing around with NT3.5.1. I still got a special place in my heart as NT3.5.1. That was the first 32-bit operating system I used, and when Windows 95 was already out, but I came across this in work. It was like, oh, what's it amazing! This and before NT4 even came out, with running Citrix WinFrame. If anybody remembers that, they'll probably get a shiver down the spine when they're hearing talking about Citrix WinFrame. But I take remote desktop for granted now, but it was a thing in NT3.5.1, but done by Citrix, not official part of Microsoft, and they brought that remote desktop terminal servers into it. Yeah, brilliant. Also, my Raspberry Pi is still working brilliant on as well with Windows 11. Oh, I got an update for you. Last week I said about I wanted to digitize my device collection.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah.
So I did do it, and I bought a. I can't plug it. There we go. Sorry, camera.
Ah, yes, yep.
So I got a. Let me stop sharing. Yeah, so I got an external drive. I think it was 30 odd quid or something like that, and it's still cheaper than trying to buy all the digital episodes. So a very manual process. I've been putting those in. I've been using good old DVD shrink to open the disc, and then I've copied all those to a USB drive. So I've got all the virtual DVDs of those now. And I was thinking, I seem to remember we used to use another program which would then convert them to MP4s. And I couldn't remember off the top of my head what that was, so I'd have to go back through our notes from days gone by.
I'm sure one of our listeners, viewers, will know the answer to that. I'm sure they will.
But to be honest, with VLC, you can just open the folder as a DVD with VLC, so that works perfectly fine. The only thing you have to remember is which episode you're on, because it's not like Netflix where it remembers where you're up to. But other than that, it works. So what I did try was I moved that USB drive onto the Raspberry Pi under Windows 11, installed the ARM version of VLC, which is available for Windows. There's a portable installer, or there's an exe run or an installer. So I didn't get the Intel one. I got the ARM version for the Raspberry Pi, Windows 11, and installed VLC, and it works perfectly. So I didn't have to get any codecs or MP4 decoders or anything like that. All I did was install VLC, did open folder, browse to the external drive, played the film, played the Blu-ray or the DVD, and there it was, full episode of My Device, all working on a Raspberry Pi with Windows 11.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So definitely the cheapest way. They are trying to buy digital episodes or whatever. I've got all these now on a drive, and of course on my Raspberry Pi I've got a 250 gig M2 SSD, so there's plenty of space on it. The Raspberry Pi doesn't, with Windows 11, doesn't take up a huge amount of space. So I guess I could just make that into a Miami Vice playback machine powered by Windows 10 and VLC. But yeah, it works brilliantly. So I was really impressed with that. I tried Amazon Prime Video on the Raspberry Pi through the ARM version of Edge, and that didn't play so well. It would play a few frames buffer, YouTube works fine. But obviously with DVD playback doesn't seem to be that taxing on the processor, and I'm guessing a lot of that optimization is built into the ARM processor as well. Yeah, which works. So there it goes. What I couldn't do was plug the DVD drive directly into the Raspberry Pi and do anything with that, because it would crash the Raspberry Pi, and I'm guessing it's because of the power drain from the external drive. This requires more power than the Pi can give it over USB 3. And that's why that crashed. I also found that this drive didn't work if I had a USB hub, a little USB hub, one of these, type ones, and that power drain was too much as well. So this had to be plugged directly into the Surface laptop USB port, and that worked fine. So there we go, all working. But I was very impressed with the Raspberry Pi being able to play a DVD, native sort of DVD playback with no special hacks or anything else, and that there's an ARM version of VLC as well, which I thought was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it seems to be versions of VLC virtually everything, isn't that?
Yeah, but an ARM version for Windows as well. Not just there's not a Linux. I didn't use anything like that. It was a Windows one.
Oh, cool, very cool.
Yes. Yeah. So before we go to our interview, have you got any other news you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, so, well, obviously the interview is all about EVs and things. And when this goes out on Thursday, the Saturday at Gaydon, at the British Motor Museum, is the Electric Vehicle Festival. And I know there's still tickets available if you go on their site. Really good day. Anybody is invited to attend. It's lots of owners exhibiting their cars, but also lots of people attending from the industry and everything. But it's open to anybody if you've got an EV or if you haven't got an EV, if you want to come and see what all the fuss about EVs is. And it's a great day out as well, because the British Motor Museum is brilliant at Gaydon anyway, so you can also wander around there even if you're not interested in EVs.
Yeah, it's a nice place, that.
Yeah.
You
need to book online, because otherwise with COVID restrictions, etc. They're still doing it safe. So you need to.
Yeah, that's good as well. And so if you're looking for an EV vehicle, then you've got that. You've got Fully Charged Live coming up as well. There's plenty of in-place things to do. And
as we mentioned last week, we've got Dan from Fully Charged Live coming on the show very shortly. We'll talk all about that stuff, so that'll be interesting to chat to him as well.
Excellent, fantastic. Well, talking of EV stuff, so you might as well introduce our guest.
Yep, so I'm about to interview Sam from Gridserve. We've had Sam on the show before, about a month ago, I guess now talking about what they were about to do with the electric highway, the former Ecotricity network, which I don't know if they'd actually done this at the time we did record the show, but they certainly did it soon after, where they actually bought the whole of electric highway off of Ecotricity and committed to changing loads and loads of chargers over. Their plan is to replace all the chargers at all the motorway service stations that Ecotricity had, so they become reliable, and you can just turn up and charge, which will be quite novel for those chargers. I mean, not novel for any other chargers, but those ones have always been one of the things which have given EVs perhaps a bad reputation, because they haven't been that reliable. Well, they certainly are now. I've been turning up and charging at these are new Gridserve electric highway chargers, and they've been working brilliantly. And I have done a video on my IPS owner channel showing how to use one of these at Peterborough, where they replaced the Peterborough one, and it's so easy. I mean, you basically take the plug out, plug it in your car, zap your credit card on the RFID on the contactless reader, and away it goes and starts charging. So it's no complexity to it at all. It's really easy, how it should be. But anyway, let's go over and talk to Sam.
Okay.
Yeah. So Sam, welcome to the show again. I'm really pleased to have you back on. Your last interview got a lot of feedback and a lot of interest. So,
what kind of feedback?
Well, some very positive, some sceptical. So we had a couple of people say that you'd actually convinced them that they could go EV because they thought that the motorway services will be viable for them then. And there were sort of people who didn't want to plan, so they just wanted to turn up and charge, which I think there's a lot of people out there who are going to be like that. I know.
Yep.
EV enthusiasts like me don't mind the planning; it's part of the fun. But I think for the most people, they just want to. They don't want to plan. They just want to go to the nearest services and charge when they get there, which is what you're basically enabling, I believe, with what you're doing. Yeah. There are a few people who I know. I quote one here. It's just, well, I certainly wish them luck, but I can't see how they can possibly do that by the end of the year.
Well, okay.
So, but you're making incredible progress from what I can see.
Well, yeah, I mean, can I answer that one first then?
Yeah.
So, just to give that particular viewer a response. So, where are we now? We're 29th of July, and in the last 9 weeks of the 169 locations, I think we're over 70 now that we've upgraded to the quality that is behind you on your image. So, so that's not bad going in 9 weeks. So on that trajectory, we will indeed complete what we said we were going to do. Hopefully by the end of September.
As Toddington likes to say, hashtag delivered. I think that's very true.
Hashtag deliver. Yeah. Hashtag deliver sustainable energy and move the needle on climate change. That is our mantra. And we probably need some sort of expediency in that tagline as well, because we are pretty good at doing things quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. I'm really, these ones behind me are Peterborough, which you did a few weeks ago. Really impressive. I mean, it's the first time I've actually turned up to any form of electric highway charger, eco2c as was in Gridserve, and plugged in. And the iPaces just started charging. Other than the rugby one, of course, which is a tricky one, but to see a nice, reliable ABB is quite something.
Yeah. Yeah,
really
it's good. It's great. It's great to see. Yeah, we're delighted with the response we've had already. And rugby's obviously a bit of a flagship because there's a significant amount of chargers at a very high power there. We need to emulate that everywhere. This is stage one, and we know that it's not. This is really just making good of what needed to be made good, perhaps a few years previous, maybe. Yeah. But there's a lot of work to do to then start upgrading them thereafter, and we fully recognise that.
So interestingly, I did a video on the Peterborough charges, and that's actually my most popular video on my channel, which shows the interest in what you're doing effectively with this. It's really and lots of questions on that. Obviously, one thing which come up, and I know you've addressed this on your blog, and Toddington's mentioned this before, is the CHAdeMO charging and the Zoe charging, which obviously has been affected to some extent by the changeover. And you're addressing that, I believe.
Yeah, we are. And as you rightly said, Gary, we've put some blogs out there to give some people some comfort and some security and understanding of what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. I think in a perfect world, the chargers behind you as we speak would have a third AC connector on it as well, so it'd be a triple-headed solution. For various different reasons, which is affecting everybody in all electrical industries at the moment. There is a certain amount of resource constraint. So we cannot sit on our hands and wait for everything to be made available to us. We have to crack on. The world needs us to crack on. And the resultant factor of that is that in certain instances we've had to take compromises in terms of certain connector types that, like some of the AC ones that we just haven't been able to put in straight away. But that's not to say we're not doing it, because we are. We're also addressing the proportion of CHAdeMO versus CCS as well. And whilst we are, as I said at the beginning of this interview, 70 sites out of 169 in 9 weeks isn't bad going, but there's going to be some issues inevitably with the different levels of supply of different connector types. We're not perfect, nobody is, and it'll take us a while to get everything up to the level that people are expecting. With AC everywhere as well as CCS and CHAdeMO, but as the blogs will articulate far better than I, we are on it. We are putting in the right thing in the right places. It's just, I think everyone's knee-jerk reaction is, they're going to take this away and they're going to do that and they're going to change. It's not the case. We are genuinely going to make everything better, and it is already better. But there are pinch points that we can't really avoid at the moment in terms of certain sites that have lost their AC momentarily, but we'll put that back in again. But so please do bear with us. We're doing a tremendous amount in a very short space of time.
You certainly are.
And I'm sorry that it's not perfect, but
Yeah.
nobody is, and we're doing the best we can.
Yeah, and for the majority of EV drivers, you've made it better already. So I think that's it is a trade-off, and I've seen the numbers of those cars on the road compared comparatively to the CCS cars, and obviously before you started this, CCS was very poorly served on the motorways, and now it's very well served on the motorways, but that's the majority of drivers. So EV drivers, and gradually getting more of a majority.
I mean, look, the reality is we know who's on the roads. We know what connectors they've got on these vehicles, and it would be utterly foolish for us to completely segregate or restrict a certain part of our own market.
Absolutely.
We are in the business of utilization on our infrastructure, and so if there's a massive proportion of cars that can't charge, then that's a problem, right? So
absolutely. And I know you'll get that fixed. I mean, I've seen what your plans are. We ought to talk about the other one, which you're working on at the moment, which is the software update to allow dual charging. Because at the moment, obviously, that one behind me has got two connectors on it, but only one of them can be used at a time at the moment. But you've got something in the works to allow both of them to be used, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. So there's a number of different ways in which we can play that challenge over. So there's at the moment, it is one charger or the other. There's a secondary option, which is one charge, or both cars are plugged in, but one only starts charging when the other one is complete, or stops charging. And then the third option is to allow dual charging, which is probably what we'll be going for, which allows both cars or vehicles to charge simultaneously. That will require some can't get my words out this evening. Dynamic charging, so that we need to balance both cars and make sure that we can spread the charging accordingly across both cars, and that requires some degree of software upgrades, which are in play at the moment. So again, it's all part of the journey. It's not too dissimilar, I suppose, from the AC conversation we just had. It's all coming, and it will be available. It's just step by step.
But I actually love the fact you're not rushing it in to put that in. You're actually testing it thoroughly, making sure it's going to work before you put it out there, which is fair enough, I think. And at the moment, actually, I mean, one of the things we've spoken about quite a bit on our show is the restriction of space in some of these chargers, even the existing ones, where you may have two connectors, but actually no parking spaces to use up all those. Is that something you're trying to address as well?
Yeah, I think the chargers are our priority at the moment, to put nice new ABB ones in. But there's lots of other constraints and considerations that are also legacy driven in terms of space of parking. Disabled access is a big one. Yeah. So I think there's lots of different provisions like that. Is there an opportunity to provide any sort of cover or not? Is that practical? The jury's out on that. So I think there's a few different areas there that we need to consider in the fullness of time in terms of where when we do hopefully upgrade a large proportion of these sites, and when I say upgrade, I mean more power and more chargers. That will give us the opportunity to reconsider or look at the landscape as it stands today, which is one that we've inherited, I might add, not the one that we've installed. So again, in the full, I feel like a little bit I'm answering the same question, same answer each time, but again, in the fullness of time, we'll address all of that as well. And the disabled access is also something I think is very important, and we need to make sure.
I was really pleased to see you addressing that, because it's something I banged on a lot about. I mean, I've met people with movement difficulties and other disabilities who have really struggled to charge, and I've actually had to help them charge, which seems incredibly poor in this day and age. And I know that's not something you've again inherited that situation, but it's I'm glad
and the cables are getting thicker too, right? So the 350 kilowatt chargers are water cooled thick cables, and they're not just thick, but they're heavy too. And depending on the type of car you've got, one of the MGs, for example, it's down on the front, quite low down socket. It's quite difficult to get to, and others are a little bit more accessible. So there's car considerations as well as hardware considerations to try and make that accessibility for everybody. So it's not a straightforward thing to solve, actually.
And I guess that's not just for people with disabilities. I mean, I know a lot of our viewers are more in the latter age group, shall we say, and physically find it quite difficult to move those cables. And one of the things which is often been said is that the support structures over the top to actually hold the cables has been a real boon to that, particularly with the awkward placing of the iPace socket, but we won't go into that. But yeah, really good to see this progress you're making. The talking about moving away from the old Ecotricity, you spoke about the electric forecourts, that's what you call them, isn't it? The bigger versions. Now, one of our readers one of the viewers is in Norwich, and he said it looks like your Norwich site is progressing really well. That's a so-called comment, but
yeah. Well, a couple of things. Firstly, just to clarify some of the branding. So what we've decided to do now is we've decided that the Electric Highway is the brand that we're going to use. So it's now the Gridserve Electric Highway as opposed to the Ecotricity one. Within the Electric Highway brand sits things beneath it. So the thing behind you will be deemed a hub, and the electric forecourts are what they say on the tin. So we're putting everything under the banner of Electric Highway, but within that there'll be hubs, which include the motorway service areas and then the electric forecourts themselves. As far as Norwich is concerned, that I understand that's we broke ground on that a few weeks ago, and it's ramping through already. So I see quite a few pictures on our Monday morning calls of the progress, and it's very, very exciting. So yeah, I mean we've enjoyed our electric forecourt in Braintree very much in the last 8-9 months since it's been open, but now we're starting to see some progress in terms of further sites getting closer to fruition is pretty exciting stuff. If the Electric Highway on its own wasn't enough, the fact that we're now building the forecourts out as well is pretty cool.
So one other thing I wanted to pick up on, because I love this, you've said you're going to introduce plug and charge or auto charge, however you want to call it. So how is that going to work going forward?
Yeah, that's very cool. So if any of your listeners or viewers are familiar with the Tesla Supercharger network, whereby when you pull up and you open the charging flap, you plug it in and then you walk away, because the car knows the charger and the charger knows the car, and the accountant or the back end system knows your bank details, etc. So it's all processed automatically, and it's very slick and it's very nice, but it's just for Tesla. What we've developed is the equivalent for everybody else, including Tesla. As a straight consumer proposition, what the functionality will be such that when you go to the first charging session at the Electric Highway, you will be asked to register on the app. You will have to put your bank details in, and we do need to know what car you've got. You start that first session, and then there is an option on the app for us to learn your details and your car. And all we do with that is it sits in the background, and then the next time, on the second, the third, the 100th time you use the charging network, all you have to do is turn up and plug it in, nothing else. So you don't have to use the app again. It'll just work, because the charger will recognize that a car has been plugged in. It will look for the information that is the data transfer that goes through on the DC connector. It will recognize the unique identifier address within the car and know that you've already registered that on the system. So every time you plug the car in, we will know which car it is. So therefore we can reconcile that against the database. We'll know which customer it is, and then we can bill you for the energy that you consumed accordingly without you needing to press any buttons at all. There's literally no buttons to press apart from opening the charging flap of your car and putting the connector in.
Which I think really addresses one of the things I hear a lot from our non-EV listeners, is that it's too challenging to charge an EV. I don't understand it. I can't work out all these buttons, I love just being able to plug my car into a petrol pump and it works.
Agreed. But I mean, if I may be so bold as to refer back to your picture again over your right shoulder, it's 1, 2, 3 stage process even now. And the little black box you can see right in the middle of the unit there is our PATA device, which is a contactless payment. So my point being that anybody with any credit card or debit card can turn up at any of these sites and charge today anyway, and it's as simple as buying a coffee. So you don't need an app, you don't have to register. You can turn up with a credit card or debit card and you can get a charge no matter who you are or what you're in. So it's not, we've made it simple already. Whereas things like auto charge, that will harbour some loyalty for Gridserve, because it means we're asking you to register with us. It's creating a different service. It's a better connection to us. But for that, you're getting the ability to make your charging process even simpler. So it might be 3 stages today, but it becomes 1 stage tomorrow, it makes it just that little bit more simple.
Yeah, I've experienced auto charge on the continent on some of their chargers, and it's just brilliant. Once you've used it, you really don't want to go back.
Well, the irony is, I suppose, well, maybe it's not irony, but the example you gave of a petrol station, I mean, it's easier than a petrol station, isn't it? Because in a petrol station, you have to put the nozzle in and stand there and pull the trigger, and you know, whereas actually with this system, you just plug it in and you walk away and go do something else.
Yeah,
You know? So it's simpler than a petrol station in that regard.
It definitely is, and you don't have to queue up to pay at the end either.
No.
So just to round off, you've obviously made huge progress. The target is still the same as it was before to finish these installs.
Yes, I believe the target is still the end of September to replace all the chargers on the network. Yeah, and then as I said at the beginning, the focus then is upgrade time in terms of providing more power to these locations. But
that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Excellent news.
Amazing progress, isn't it? Yeah.
It's
and I take zero credit for it, by the way. I'm one of the guys that's lucky enough to stand and sit in front of people like yourself and do interviews, but the operations team in the background are the silent heroes who are working tirelessly and get very little credit from anybody because they've got their heads down building stuff. But they're the heroes in all of this, and the effort they're putting in is phenomenal.
I don't know what one final viewer question, which you may not be able to answer a lot of this, but it just said, what's happening to all the old chargers?
I don't know exactly what's happening to them, but we've had a huge amount of interest in them. I think there's an awful lot of people who are wanting to use them for testing. There's an opportunity for them to recycle, and there's some actually quite high value components inside as well that can be recycled. So I don't know the full answer to that question, but I know that we have a plan for it and a process for it in terms of obviously they're not being thrown into landfill. So there's a number of different solutions there to either recycle them or use them for testing or repurpose them, but they won't be repurposed onto the Gridserve network though.
I couldn't imagine you guys ever throwing anything away just into landfill. That just doesn't make sense. It's not your ethos at all, is it?
That wouldn't be appropriate. I mean, with the sort of ethos and the solar energy generation that we create at the front end and delivering it to the cars at the end on the miles on the road, it would be inappropriate to throw things into the landfill from a Gridserve perspective.
So one other thing I just wanted to touch on with you. Obviously, you've now got this new website. You've added the map to the website, which is brilliant, I have to say. So what does that actually offer?
What does the map offer?
Yeah.
We've got a number of different changes coming through in the website actually. Anyway, so we're putting some work into our leasing website in its entirety, so that will improve over time. Yeah. The interactive map really was an exercise in wanting to ensure that we did our very best to communicate with our consumers really in terms of what's going on. And as we discussed just before we started recording, Maz has been amazing at keeping abreast of all of our developments from a third party, completely free of charge aspect. But we needed to make sure that as a business we provided some intelligence in terms of what's going on. Similarly, this information is also disseminated out to ZapMap as well, of course. So there is a split now between the Gridserve chargers and the legacy Ecotricity ones. So they will obviously inevitably diminish continually until they are no more. And every time one diminishes or disappears from one side, it reappears on the Gridserve side of the new highway. So that data is fed into ZapMap, but it's also fed into our own website, so people can see where the latest pins on the map are. And if there's a pin on the map, it means that we've done what's behind you effectively in Peterborough. At the very least. That map will continually evolve. It'll have more information on it, but ultimately that's the network, that's the Gridserve network appearing in front of our eyes nationally over the next few months.
I have to say it's great to watch. I kind of look at it on almost a daily basis, just seeing how it's growing. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I used it myself just to travel on holiday to Devon last week. And I've got, like you, and I've been driving EVs a very, very long time, and planning has been part of it. And people don't necessarily wish to do that in the future, and that's fine. We'll make sure that's not necessary. But yeah, it was great to be able to go on our map and work out where I was going to stop on the way down to Devon. I thought this is great, So yeah, it's great. It's great to see, and it's very exciting for us existing EV drivers, and the new ones will just think that's standard, right? But for us older crowd, it's a bit of a luxury.
It is definitely. So you touched on the leasing there. Obviously, we mentioned this last time, but I think it's just worth going back over that again, just to say what you're offering there, because I love some of the things you're doing as part of that leasing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's something that we set up, it must be 9 or 10 months ago now in the making, in terms of creating our own leasing and brokerage package with our partners and shareholders, Hitachi Capital. But it stands to reason that Gridserve always talks about the sun to wheel. So the old analogy of well to wheel is in oil well to refinery to transportation to putting it at a petrol station to setting it on fire and losing 70% of the energy and heat and all that horrible stuff. And we basically do the same thing. We sun to wheel. So we're harvesting energy from the sun, putting into batteries, and then putting it through our infrastructure and into cars. So it stands to reason that if we're going to do a sun to wheel journey, we should do everything from harvesting the sunlight through to providing vehicles, because ultimately the more vehicles we can provide, the more EVs we can sell and put on the road, the more our network is going to be utilized, and so it all works in harmony. So the leasing package is a very, very important revenue stream for the business. We have options of including energy within the lease if you so wish, so it gives you access across the whole duration of the lease of the type of chargers that are behind you and across 85% of the service station network once we've upgraded it all. And we also plant 100 trees for every vehicle that's sold through us as well. And the reason why we do that is because we can create net zero energy. We can give it to you through our charging infrastructure, and we can provide you with a zero tailpipe vehicle. What we can't do is control the carbon creation during the production of the vehicle, which is one of the other things of the myth busting requirements that we all need to do from time to time. So the plantation of trees like that is a calculation on effectively netting off some of, if not all of, the carbon created during the production of the vehicle. Even though that's not on us, we want to cover that off as well. And in some cases, like the ID3, for example, that is already a net zero factory, by virtue of planting 100 trees, we're creating a negative carbon solution. So by leasing a vehicle through us for a vehicle like that, you're actually positively contributing rather than just preventing. So yeah, we're doing everything we can to put vehicles on the road, electric vehicles on the road, I might add, because that's the way the world is going. You know, there's 36 million vehicles to change to EV over the next 10 to 30 years. So it stands to reason that with everything else that we're doing, having a completely renewable and environmentally friendly leasing package is a logical thing for us to be able to provide as well.
Brilliant. Well, Sam, thanks again for coming on the show. I'm sure we'll have, again, more follow-up questions at some point. We'll probably catch up with you at Fully Charged Live, because we're going to be hosting the podcast there again this year. So we'll try and catch up there and see how you got on, which by that point, you must be pretty close to being completed on the whole rollout. So. Yeah,
well, let's see. Yeah, we've got a stand at Fully Charged Live as well. So please do come and see us, ask us questions, and we'll look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, and that's obviously open to anybody who's listening to come and see you as well. Because I know a lot of people will turn up there.
Absolutely, yeah, most welcome.
Brilliant. Thanks again, Sam.
All right, Garry. Thank you.